Ah, another visitor. Welcome, welcome. What's that? You're lost and you like to stay the night at our fine establishment? Why, of course, we are a hotel for the lost souls, after all. Now, why don't you make yourself comfortable while I clean up your room?
Did you know that the 2004 PS2 battle game is actually hardware?
Ah, just in time. Your room is all cleaned up and ready for you. Please, right this way.
This is all starting to look a lot like Gregory Horror Show. So Gregory Horror Show is this really bizarre and interesting 3D animated Japanese show from 1999, created by Naomi Iwata. Other than Gregory Horror Show, Naomi also most notably made Pecola and Midnight Horror School, both of which have the same unique papercraft doll art style. But the way I, and probably a lot of other people, found out about Gregory Horror Show is through the PS2 game Gregory Horror Show Soul Collector, made by Capcom. I would say that game is the most popular thing to come out of Gregory Horror Show. And you can tell just by looking at the YouTube results. There's so much more videos and people talking about the game than there are talking about the show itself, which I find strange but also perfect for me because I want to talk about it, and now, I don't have any competition. It ran from 1999 to 2001 and it consisted of 4 volumes or seasons. The first being The Nightmare Begins, then The Second Guest, The Last Train, and finally The Bloody Cart. Each episode was a bit over 2 minutes and it aired at 11:55 p.m. And despite being aired at such a late time, apparently it was fairly popular. It got I think 4 to 5% average viewer rating, which is supposedly a very large number for such a late time slot. After the original 4-volume run was over, there were some attempts to bring it back and to revive it in different fucking ways and attempts, but I'll get to that later. Right now, I'm gonna be recapping the whole show. Yippee, it's your favorite, you love when I recap things. Before I get into the actual recap, please consider watching the actual Gregory Horror Show yourself. It is worth the time. You can find it super easily on YouTube and it takes 3.5 hours to watch all 4 of the volumes. I will be pretty detailed in recapping the episodes, but also I will leave out some inconsequential details. So even if you decide to go watch the show after watching my video, there will be still something new for you to explore. But I'm done prepping you. Now we're jumping in. The volume begins with the main character, Stephen Haniwa, walking up to the entrance of Gregory House while talking to himself. Stephen wonders how he got here, saying that the last thing he remembers is taking the last train to the station and then walking home. The door to the Gregory House opens, the logo appears, and a child screams. Each episode starts like this. The monologue will be different, but it will be the same walk up to the Gregory House. Well, future episodes omit the walk up to the Gregory House, they just show the closed doors while Stephen monologues. Every monologue will somehow relate to and allude to the plot of the episode. It kind of reminds me of Rod Serling's monologues in The Twilight Zone. These monologues are cool and all, but this is the last monologue I'll be actually showing. Stephen finally enters the mysterious Gregory house and jump scare. A mouse man suddenly appears and scares the shit out of Stephen. The mouse man acts super creepy, saying how he sees in Stephen's eyes a desire for death and shit, I don't know. He then leaves to prepare a room for Stephen. He disappears into the darkness and a bit after, a blood-curdling scream can be heard. The mouse man appears from behind Stephen super bloody and with an axe lodged in the back of his head. He then escorts Stephen up the stairs.
Come along now, my friend. It's time for me to show you to your room.
Did you notice anything interesting about the show? Aside from the very cool cubic art style, I mean? Yes, very good. It's all from the first perspective. It's very neat. I really like it. I think it gives it such a spooky and personal vibe to it. Like you are entering this wacky, bizarre space, you know? It's very cool. Back to the story. Mouseman leads Steven to his room and Steven notices a few creepy things about the room, like a bloodstain on the floor. For each of these creepy little details, the Mouseman has a flimsy excuse. Steven then tries opening the window, but before he's able to fully open it, the Mouseman warns him to be prepared for the consequences of opening the window. Steven then decides against opening the window. Scenes like this, coupled with the first-person perspective, make me feel like I'm watching someone else play like a classic horror game or something. Like this whole show plays like one of those video game the movie videos people upload on YouTube, where like, you know, they upload all cutscenes and stories so you can watch a game like it's a movie. I can almost see a pop-up asking open window? Yes, no. And this is such a peculiar vibe. I really do like it a lot. Where were we? Oh yeah, Steven chooses not to open the window. The mouse praises him for making the correct choice and finally introduces himself as Gregory.
I'm Gregory. Don't hesitate to ask for me if you need anything.
He then leaves Steven in his room. After that, we get our first look at one of the best and most beloved characters in the series. I'm just gonna let this scene play out.
They call me Judgment Boy. Do you know who I am? They call me Judgment Boy. Do you know who I am? They call me Judgment Boy. Do you know who I am? They call me Judgment Boy. Do you know who I am?
We'll be seeing a lot more of him in the later episodes, but all you gotta know for now is that he's iconic. After this, Gregory pops out of the closet, Yas, Queen, slay, and warns Steven not to peek into the other rooms, saying it's for his own good. Next, Steven hears loud cat noises coming from the room beside him. Gregory yells at the cat and I think whips it too. He then opens Steven's room to apologize for his outburst. Steven asks Gregory who's staying in the room and Gregory responds by just closing the door and leaving. The cat sounds continue, so Steven decides to investigate himself. He looks through the keyhole of the weirdly enforced door of room 203 and... jump scare! Gregory appears to introduce us to Neko Zombie. He says that Neko Zombie comes from a neighboring family that used to cause them trouble. Neko Zombie was a beautiful cat, but then someone sewed all his holes shut, like all of them. Absolutely insane. After all that, Steven is met by a creepy crying child in the hallway. Gregory appears yet again and explains that the child is still searching for her dolly that her heartless parents threw away. Gregory then pressures Steven to give the girl a hug to make her feel better, but then... jump scare! It turns out that the crying girl is the doll itself, but she doesn't realize it. Gregory says some wise sounding shit and zips away.
Are you your own master, or are your strings being pulled by a long forgotten connection with another?
Gregory brings a dubious, viscous, inedible-looking soup to Steven as a midnight snack. Steven says that he's not hungry, but Gregory freaks out when he hears that, because the last guest that insulted the chef like that mysteriously disappeared. After having heard that, Steven decides to eat the soup after all. While eating the soup, Steven stumbles onto a gold tooth in the soup. Oh yeah, Gregory also specifically mentioned that the previous guest had a gold tooth, so it makes it extra scary because Steven is eating previous guest's soup. Ooh, scary, spooky, ooh, cannibalism. Steven then starts feeling woozy and passes out. The chef walks in and almost kills Steven before Gregory stops him, saying that first they need to let Steven marinate with fear. So this is the first time Gregory is like actually hostile towards Steven. Up until now it was, you know, tongue-in-cheek like, oh, I'm evil, or am I, tee-hee-hee. But now, shit is getting real. Steven is awoken by Catherine, the Gregory house nurse. She says that Steven is lucky to have a nurse like her and that she's actually surprised that he lived after eating the chef's special soup. Next, Catherine pulls out a comically large syringe and starts sucking on Steven for a blood sample. And oh my god, this girl is a freak! She like starts moaning and squirming around while drawing blood so much that Gregory had to snap her out of it because Steven already passed out and she almost killed him. Gregory reminds Catherine that Steven can't recover, but he also can't die yet either. So there's something really interesting to me in this scene. Aside from the whole getting off to sucking blood thing, that whole scene wasn't in first person. Like they say that Steven passed out, but even if they didn't say that, the camera like very clearly cut to Gregory and Catherine. And that's just kind of like how it is with Gregory Horror Show. They're like very fast and loose with their like first person perspective rule. And you know, I don't have a problem with it per se. Like, do I think they're taking the easy way out by just like dropping it at the drop of a hat? No. Why would you fucking think so? I think it's just totally not lazy to do that. I know. If I'm being honest, I don't think it's a big deal. But is it a sign of bad things to come? No, it's far too early. It's just something interesting. Anyways, I'm trying to like sow the seeds of doubt early on, but I don't think this is quite worth the sowage. The seeding, it's not worth my seed, okay? My seed is far too potent and valuable for this part. What am I talking about? What the fuck? This episode is pretty inconsequential. The only thing it does is introduce us to a pair of weirdos. So Steven is awoken by a little dog with an axe firmly lodged in his head. He says that he's sick too and that he has a splitting headache. He then calls his dad in the room to help him and Steven. The kid's dad enters and just like his son, he has an axe in his head. What a wacky family. Then Catherine enters to treat everyone.
Who I am Judgment Boy.
Steven stumbles onto Judgment Boy, and then Judgment Boy immediately hits Steven with a hypothetical.
You're a businessman. Today you will sign a major contract that will change your life. But your girlfriend who you love has just been hit by a car. If you go to the hospital, you'll lose that contract. Now, which will you choose?
Steven says that he chooses to visit his girlfriend in the hospital, but Judgment Boy knows better and judges that Steven would choose the contract and that his girlfriend dies alone in the hospital. After saying like the hardest line ever,
"It was your choice. You get to live with it."
Judgment Boy bails. After that, Gregory appears to express his disappointment in Steven.
You're a terrible person.
Blam! A cactus cowboy breaks into Steven's room and dares him to a duel. Gregory overhears, and instead of stopping it, he volunteers himself as the judge of the duel. All three of them are transported to a badass Wild West town and the duel begins. Before Steven could react, Cactus Gunman whips out his gun and pulls the trigger. He's a terrible shot though and instead shoots Gregory. And instead of dying, Gregory just gets pissed off and chases after Cactus Gunman with a carbine repeater looking thing. Oh, but before he leaves, Gregory drops a crazy Metal Gear Solid ass line.
War has no reason except this. The survivor is always the one fighting for what's right.
Steven gets awoken by a freaky TV head flying fish thing, and it seems to be showing footage of Steven's family and he chases after it. Before Steven could watch anymore, Gregory shuts off the TV fish. When asked why the reception is so bad, Gregory says that it's because the fish is showing Steven's fading memories of his family. Steven just now remembers that he was carrying a cell phone this whole time. But before he could call someone, Neko Zombie jumps him and chews up the cell phone. After Gregory drags away Neko Zombie, Steven runs downstairs to try and make a call using the public payphone. It turns out that the phone isn't a phone at all. It's a guest of Gregory's house who likes to scam people. Mr. Phone runs away with Steven's money. Judgment Boy is back and hits Steven with a wacky hypothetical again. Steven and a friend play in a classroom after class and they accidentally break a vase, and then the teacher walks in. Steven claims that he would be honest, but Judgment Boy knows better. Steven would actually throw his friend under the bus, who in turn becomes so devastated that he never shows up in class again. Gregory again appears to express how disgusted he is at Steven. He even calls him a demon. But that's when Judgment Boy turns his judgment mode to Gregory and hits him with an even crazier hypothetical.
Your mother and a chunk of cheese are both about to fall off a cliff. Now which one are you going to save?
It turns out Gregory would go after the cheese instead of saving his mother. After hearing that, Gregory is summoned by his mother to go to her room and get reprimanded. Okay, now we have confirmation that these are just hypotheticals. But like everyone is treating it as if it did happen because I guess Judgment Boy is the perfect judging machine. He just knows you. Aside, from that confirmation, we are also introduced to Gregory's mom, called Gregory Mama. And she is like a very big part of the story later, and she's like very crucial to the plot of Gregory Horror Show. While walking through the hotel, Steven is stopped by a clock kid and his clock dad. They inform Steven that he's suffering from a time warp and that they can cure it for him by going back to the past before his time warped. Clock kid winds his dad and they actually did manage to travel in time, but only right when Steven enters the Gregory house for the first time. This is actually what happens. Like, Steven actually goes back to the very beginning of the story, and then the torture just kind of continues. It doesn't really change anything because I guess Steven is still vacant, and Gregory's goal is like the same from the beginning, just like kind of torture Steven. So, you know, I guess we time traveled, the end, carry on. Bizarre. Steven is again walking through the hotel and is again stopped by a guest weirdo. This time it's a frog fortune teller lady saying that she's seeing water in Steven's future. Pretty much as soon as she says that, a freaky toilet child thing appears, screams out toilet paper and flushes itself. Steven goes to help toilet baby despite Gregory advising him against it, which causes Steven to be flushed away as well. Gregory finds the flushed away Steven in a different room and tries to get both of them out of the room ASAP, but they're stopped by Roulette Boy, who makes them play a dangerous, life-sized board game. They have to spin Roulette Boy's head to make it to the end, but the board is riddled with hazards. By the time they finally make it to the end, Gregory is barely alive. For whatever reason, Steven and Gregory are now on a roller coaster called the Speed Mouse. They drive by a shower of lost souls, and Gregory seems to really revel in the souls' suffering. The roller coaster then just flies off because the tracks are unfinished. Gregory parachutes away, leaving poor Steven to plummet on his own. You may have noticed that things are kind of like picking up and getting off the rails. Get it? But that's kind of the pacing of the show. I'd say that the average Gregory Horror Show volume has 3 acts. First, we have the setup act, which is, you know, just like the show setting itself up. Like, it introduces the characters, the main character, and like the status quo of the show. I would say it lasts from, obviously, the first episode, you know, when you enter the Gregory house, up until when Steven eats the dubious previous guest soup. Like, I would say that's the end of that act, because even though there's just like a few random episodes before that, in this episode do we like actually learn Gregory has like ulterior motives, and that's the setup of the show. Gregory wants to make Steven suffer and he wants to torture him for some reason, and Steven wants to escape. Then we have act 2, which is kind of just like random bullshit act. It's just like most of the episodes are wacky, non sequitur guests fucking with Steven. I'd say that lasts from the soup episode up until the toilet baby episode, because toilet baby episode marks the beginning of the end, you know, like the shit is getting real arc. Because like from the toilet baby episode up until the end, most of the episodes are just like flowing one into the next episode, so it's just like one continuous escape attempt, I guess, by Steven. So yeah, that's the story. That's the 3-act structure. It has a beginning, middle, and end. Gregory Horror Show really is a show. Okay, now that I've successfully analyzed the story structure, we can move on with the show. Steven finds himself in a room full of mirrors, but he can't see himself in any of the reflections. Mirror Man then shows up to say that he can't see himself because a mirror shows substance, and Steven doesn't have any. But Mirror Man says it's okay because there is one mirror that can show even Steven's reflection. Mirror Man then presents himself to Steven. Steven is actually Gregory? What? I can't believe this. Oh my god. He isn't really though. It's one of those things like, oh, you're no better than the villain, but 2 sides of the same coin, you know? Steven wigs out and starts breaking mirrors and accidentally reveals a hidden passageway behind one of the mirrors. In there, Steven finds Inko and Kinko. Kinko, the safe, tells Steven that he had a dream about him, where they frolicked in a field until Steven drops something and falls into a bed of spikes. Kinko then opens up to give Steven the thing that he dropped in Kinko's dream, which turns out to be Steven's melting heart. Man, this shit makes no fucking sense. Gregory finally runs into the room, but he's too late as Steven already left the room. As punishment, Gregory is beamed up by Gregory Mama to her room. We finally get a good look at Gregory Mama and at the true reason behind Gregory tormenting Steven. It turns out that Gregory Mama eats people's souls to stay young, and that's it, that's the whole reason. Man, Gregory ain't shit. He's just a little mama's boy bitch baby. That's crazy. Cut to Steven. and we're back in first person just in time for Judgment Boy! This time, he hits Steven with a completely tame hypothetical about confessing to a crush. Steven says he confesses, but of course he actually wouldn't. Anyway, Judgment Boy summons a door that leads down some stairs and tells Steven to make his own decisions from now on. Steven starts running down this saw-like basement maze, and just as Steven is about to give up and go back to his room, Angel Dog appears and helps Steven by manifesting a ladder up. After Steven goes up using the ladder, Angel Dog turns into Devil Dog and says some ominous shit. The ladder leads Steven to the graveyard right outside the Gregory house. He hides from Gregory behind some tombstones, which leads him to fall into one of the graves. In the grave, Steven is welcomed by a zombie who acts friendly at first, but ends up attacking Steven because he wants his body to escape. Having little choice, Steven runs back into Gregory's house for safety. Gregory tells Steven to forget everything and go to bed, and that's when Neko Zombie gives Steven a wake-up call, saying that there's people waiting for him at home. Then Angel Dog appears, saying how she's disappointed in Steven. Man, I'm glad someone is finally laying into Steven. Like, he is such a passive protagonist. It took him like 5 episodes to even remember that he has a phone. Absolutely useless. Fucking waste of air, piece of living shit. Anyways, Angel Dog helps him out one last time by making a door leading to heaven or hell. Once Steven goes to the door, Angel Dog turns into Devil Dog again and says some ominous shit again. Gregory barges in, asking Neko Zombie if he knows where Steven went. Neko Zombie plays dumb and Gregory leaves to look somewhere else. I really like Neko Zombie. He suffered so much, but still he just wants to help anyone escape. He's so nice. He's such a cutie patootie. Judgment Boys! There's more than one! Steven is attacked by a bunch of hypotheticals from a circle jerk of Judgment Boys. But then, the ultimate life form descends. Judgment Boy Gold! He says that Steven's chances of escaping are getting smaller and smaller, and asks him what he's going to do. In response, Steven jumps off onto this weird pathway of light, and this marks the first time Steven chose the heart over the money sign. Cut to Gregory, and also break the first person immersion while doing it. Gregory notices that the Gregory house is starting to break down and tells Gregory Mama that the time has come for Steven to discover the truth. Cut back to Steven. He is making his way down the path of light, but he's attacked by a weird spirit version of Gregory. That's when Death appears and offers to cut his ties with Gregory. Gregory then tries convincing Steven that he doesn't really want to go back home, and that he himself chose to come to this world. It doesn't work though, and Steven accepts Death's help. He did it! Steven actually managed to escape to the real world. And I love that the real world is actually live action. That is so cool. Oh look, we finally know how Steven looks. But it turns out that the real world actually is too mundane for Steven, and he decides to go back to Gregory's house of his own volition.
Welcome back, my friend. Your room is ready for you, just like I promised. You must be quite exhausted from your little trip to reality. Go ahead and get some rest, because this is your world now.
And that's volume 1. I really like the ending, the whole live action part, and how Steven just gets defeated by reality once again, but then chooses to go back to Gregory's house. I think that's really cool. But one thing that's kind of weird and nonsensical is that Gregory doesn't really have any ulterior motives. When Steven goes back, he just becomes a guest. In the later volumes, we do see him have a little cameo appearance. So we know his soul wasn't eaten. So Gregory was just I guess a poser. He was just acting, ooh, I'm tough, I'm edgy, I'm gonna eat you, rawr. But he's just please stay at my hotel for free. He's great. He's just a fucking edgelord wanting to convince you stay away from me. My troubled past. There's a lot of people on Tumblr who are shipping Gregory and into him. At first I was what? That's a fucking old ass, creepy ass mouse. But now I kinda get it, dude. I get it. But anyway, we're done with volume 1. Let's go on to volume 2. Well, actually, before we get into Volume 2, did you know that included with the Volume 1 DVD releases, there were 3 bonus episodes called The Gallery Tour, which is like kind of like a mini season. And not only that, did you know it was considered lost media all the way up to the year 2020? So we gotta talk about that, right? Now, technically, Gallery Tour was made and released a few years after the whole original run of the show, but I still feel like it fits right after Volume 1 because it's, in the Volume 1 DVD and the main protagonist is still Steven. So, that's how I'm gonna do it. For the longest time, only the second episode of Gallery Tour was available online and it was only in Japanese. And then this absolute legend, Media Monster, who archives just lost media in general, bought all 3 of the DVDs and then digitized the mini episodes, and he even commissioned a fan anime subbing group to translate and sub the whole anime. And he just uploaded all of those episodes on his YouTube. What an absolute legend. He actually did such a huge favor to the Gregory Horror Show community. So this one's to you. This one's to you, Media Monster. God bless you. God fucking bless you. What do I look like I'm threatening here? I'm thanking you. Thank you, Media Monster. Now, with that truly fascinating tale of some guy buying 3 DVDs online out of the way, let's move on to the actual episodes of Gallery Tour. So the story of these episodes is actually the least interesting thing to me, at least until episode 3. The far more interesting thing is the fact that this is all in Japanese. I tried to find a sub-Japanese dub of the original show, but I had no luck, so this was my first time experiencing Gregory Horror Show in the OG dub. And dude, Gregory's voice is so much deeper and more ominous. It's really good. Now, the other really cool thing is that each episode is at least over 5 minutes long, with the last episode being a whopping 15 minutes long. And this is the only time we'll be seeing Gregory Horror Show episodes that are this long. All the other ones are strictly 2 minutes and 10 seconds. Now, the story itself. In the first episode, Gregory leads the protagonist, presumably Steven, through a gallery of some of the Gregory House guests. And that's pretty much it. Each guest portrait kinda reacts to Gregory and Steven. The first one is kinda interesting though, as it more or less confirms that Gregory did indeed sew up Neko Zombie. Anyway, in the first episode, Gregory briefly introduces and talks about Neko Zombie, Lost Doll, Hell's Chef, Catherine, the Axe Dog Father-Son duo, and last but certainly not least, Judgment Boy. He then ends the tour by showing Steven where his portrait will go one day. In the next episode, Gregory does pretty much the same thing with another batch of guests. This time around he introduces Cactus Gunman, TV Fish, Public Phone, Clockmaster and his son. Also, is this a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure reference? The Frog Fortune Teller, Toilet Baby, Roulette Boy, and finally Black Ducks. The episode ends with Black Ducks putting Steven on the roller coaster that's taking off to God knows where. Now for the final and super stylish episode. The episode starts in such an epic and cinematic way. I was really impressed by it. After the cool title sequence, Gregory dramatically enters the gallery and invites Steven once again to admire the Great Hall of Wandering Spirits. In this episode, Gregory shows off Mirror Man, Inko and Kinko, Gregory Mama, Angel Dog and Devil Dog. This section also briefly shows us 2 new Gregory forms, Angel Gregory and Devil Gregory. Dead Body / Zombie, depending on the translation. And then after that, Gregory introduces the ultimate life form, Judgment Boy Gold. And then lastly, Death. Upon seeing Death's portrait, Steven comes to his senses and uses Death's sight to destroy the gallery in order to escape. And then after the gallery collapses, we see Steven dust himself off and run back to the city. And then at the very end, a rat scutters off. So I'm pretty sure that the rat is supposed to be Gregory, and this means that Steven finally escaped Gregory and the Gregory house. So yay, finally a happy ending for Steven. And that's all of the gallery tour episodes. I'd say stylistically, this is the best Gregory Horror Show the show has to offer. Like, you can tell this was made like a few years after the original run, and that they weren't like pressured to have like a weekly episode release, because oh my god, it's so much prettier. Like the animations, the details, the environments, it's like a noticeable upgrade. The story though is pretty much exactly what you'd expect from a DVD bonus episode. Aside from the cool shots and like intros of the gallery, it's just Gregory walking around some paintings, you know. It's like cool, it's neat, it's like perfect for a DVD thing. But we can now finally move on from the first volume and the first protagonist to talk about the second night. Is it called the second guest or second night? No, it's called the second guest. Jesus. Let's talk about the second guest. That's the name of the second volume. While this season features a completely new protagonist, a woman this time, I'd say the actual structure is pretty much like identical to the first volume. Each episode begins with an opening monologue as the protagonist walks up to the Gregory house. I'd even say this season also follows like the 3-act structure I talked about earlier. One thing that's different in this volume is that the protagonist doesn't have like a confirmed name or identity. Steven was confirmed by the creator that that's his name, and like we later see him appear here and there, but this guest doesn't have a name, so I'll just be calling her like the second guest or protagonist throughout. Just like at the beginning of volume 1, the second guest recounts how she got here while walking up to the Gregory house. She says that the last thing she remembers is being in a taxi on her way home from her best friend's wedding. Gregory gives the second guest pretty much the same spiel as in the first volume. On their way to her room, they see Steven, who hands the second guest his business card and runs off. Once they enter the room, Gregory notices that the rose on the table has wilted and goes to replace it. Gregory comes back with a fresh rose, and while putting it on the table, he gets pricked by one of its thorns. Later at night, while the protagonist sleeps, the rose starts transforming into a huge thorn claw hand thing while begging to be held. It tries attacking the protagonist, but she manages to run out into the hallway from it. Gregory then enters the room with her and says that they say when a rose dies, it shows us her dream, and that perhaps what she saw wasn't the rose's dream, but her own. I don't know, this whole episode is full of things like, ooh, you're as prickly as that rose. Ooh, you're a pretty woman, but no one likes you. You should smile more. Anyways, Gregory burns the rose, and while carrying out the empty vase, gets attacked by the rose claw thing. I guess this is a bottomless vase of roses or something, I don't know. The second guest wants to smoke a cigarette, but her lighter doesn't work, so she goes downstairs to Gregory so she could light it off Gregory's little candle. Gregory then says how he noticed an increase in women smokers lately, asking if that means that women are more impulsive. Gregory is so weirdly obsessed with the fact that the second guest is a woman. He's coming off extremely creepy and slimy this time around. As the protagonist makes her way back to the room while smoking, she's attacked by the chef, but before he could kill the protagonist, Gregory extinguishes his little candle hat, which deactivates him. Gregory then says that the chef hates cigarettes because they numb taste buds. I love Hell's Chef, he's such a cutie patootie. While walking through the hotel's hallway, the protagonist notices Catherine's room and investigates it. When she hears Gregory and Catherine approaching, she hides underneath the hospital bed. Catherine unsurprisingly acts freaky AF, which makes the protagonist realize that Catherine is not a good nurse. Catherine and Gregory then head to the protagonist's room to do a checkup on her, not knowing that she was hiding in the nurse's room this whole time. While sneaking back to her room, the protagonist runs into a new character, James, a bratty little rat kid. The protagonist asks James to check if her room is empty, and James swears that no one is in there. When the protagonist opens the door, she's surprised to see that Gregory and Catherine are still in her room. Before Catherine could start sucking on the protagonist, James, the little shit, takes her comically large needle and runs around with it until he accidentally stabs Gregory in the head. Catherine then starts sucking on Gregory because she has no self-control or self-respect.
Please Please forgive me. Oh, I just can't ever get enough of this sensation.
James and the protagonist run away. Gregory formally introduces James as his grandson. As a form of apology, James gives the lost doll to her. Later that night, the lost doll comes to life and starts doing her thing and freaks out at the protagonist. Thanks to some quick thinking, the protagonist lights a cigarette and throws it at the doll just as the chef barges in, causing him to slice the doll's puppet strings, deactivating it. The second guest goes to the bar to drown her sorrows. There, Gregory serves her a cocktail called the Time Traveler, which causes her to relive her painful memories. We learn that her best friend was actually marrying the protagonist's ex-boyfriend, and that the reason why he broke up with her was because she chose her career over him. We also learn that the Clockmaster has a drinking problem. Troubled by her icky ex-boyfriend memories, the protagonist struggles to fall asleep. That's when Sleepy Sheep appears to try and help her fall asleep. Sadly, all Sleepy Sheep does is tire itself out after making a whole mess jumping around. Sleepy Sheep then falls asleep and dreams about the protagonist's ex-boyfriend. The protagonist is transported to Bonsai Kabuki's fantasy stage, where he sees into the protagonist's fantasy with his third eye. After a kinky elevator fantasy, Bonsai Kabuki sees a fantasy of the protagonist getting married, but the groom turns out to be Gregory. Ugh. Cactus Gunman is back, and this time, instead of challenging the protagonist to a duel, he expresses his love for the protagonist. The second guest tries running away and bumps into Gregory, which makes Cactus Gunman think that Gregory and the protagonist are together. He then chases after Gregory. While walking down the hall and singing Judgment Boy's song, Gregory is lassoed by Cactus Girl, little sister of Cactus Gunman. As revenge for hurting her brother's feelings, she threatens to hang Gregory. Thinking they were only playing, James runs in and hangs Gregory himself, and that's when Cactus Gunman appears, rescues Gregory, and walks off into the sunset with his little sister.
You can't just leave! You tried to kill me! Come back here, you damn...
For whatever reason, the protagonist is in Judgment Boy headquarters now, as the Judgment Boys practice their Judgment voice and technique. Judgment Boy Gold praises the boys and then hits the protagonist with this judgment.
You are 29 years old. Your former boyfriend has just married one of your best friends. Now, what are you going to do? Now.
After that judgment, the protagonist finds herself hidden behind some shelves full of souls in Gregory Mama's room. The protagonist is now aware of Gregory and Gregory Mama's plans as she overhears them while trying to sneak out. Before she could leave, James rats her out. The Gregory family tries to catch the protagonist, but thanks to James's antics, she manages to run away. Gregory contemplates killing his own mother.
Wait, I could finish her off.
Why didn't you help me, Gregory?
Gregory sends James to give the protagonist a suspicious brooch, but when she refuses, James gladly takes it for himself and runs away. After realizing James still has the brooch, Gregory freaks out because the brooch is actually a tracker for Trap Mouse. Then Gregory Mama appears as well and gets chomped on by Trap Mouse. The protagonist tries to escape by running into the forest, where she's picked up by Hell's taxi. Somehow, James managed to sneak into the taxi as well and makes the taxi stop because he has to pee. The protagonist follows James into the woods, but then he runs back to the taxi and they drive off, leaving the protagonist stranded in the forest. In the forest's graveyard, the poor conductor guilt trips the protagonist into listening to his last performance. She is then transported onto the vinyl itself and almost gets killed by the record needle, but is saved by the taxi driven by Gregory, who drives her back to the hotel. Excuse me? The Dancing Freak's irresistible dance makes Gregory's, James, and the protagonist's souls fly off into Gregory Mama's soul collection. Gregory Mama unknowingly tries to eat Gregory's soul, but is absolutely sickened by the stench. She throws away the soul, breaking the soul jars. James enters Gregory's body and runs off. Gregory then enters James' body and chases after him. Using Gregory's body, James roasts the shit out of Gregory Mama and switches back to his original body, causing Gregory himself to be punished for James's sins. Not knowing where her body is, the protagonist starts roaming around with the other lost souls. That's when Death appears and starts setting the souls free by severing their ties to reality. But when it's the protagonist's turn, he notices that she's still too full of longing and that she should go back to her body. When Death realizes she can't find her body, he opens a portal to her body. Man, Death is such a cool guy. He's just helping those lost souls out. He's so chill, damn. It turns out that a bunch of cultists are using the protagonist's body for some sort of ritual. When the ritual doesn't work, they set the coffin on fire out of anger. But the protagonist manages to get into her body just in time to escape the flames, and axes Gregory in the head.
I take it you're pretty angry about this.
Nothing really happens in this episode. Gregory and Gregory Mama talk shit about the protagonist behind her back, saying how she's too angry and willful and that she's never going to be happy even if she escapes. The protagonist overhears what they're saying because James is recording them with a camera that's broadcasting to TV Fish. She then shows up and leaves, and that's it. Why does the protagonist care what they think, and why does Gregory care that she overheard them? It doesn't make any sense. Neko Zombie is back. The protagonist enters Neko Zombie's cell after hearing him cry and gives him a bandage for his hurt leg. Neko Zombie wants her to escape and tells her to run away when the full moon rises. The protagonist listens and runs away while Neko Zombie sets the whole hotel on fire.
What are you doing?
Stop him, Gregory!
Let's put an end to this, once and for all! I'm taking revenge for everything you've done to me and my family!
Utter chaos ensues as the whole hotel is falling apart. Neko Zombie tells the protagonist that if she truly wants to destroy this world, she needs to step into the flames herself. The second guest was either too unsure or too afraid to jump into the flames, so Gregory House wasn't able to burn away completely. Gregory, James, and Gregory Mama welcome her into the family. Gregory Mama even goes so far to call her her daughter. The second guest tries running away, but Gregory says that there's no point as the thing that burned away was her own reality. After saying that, the Gregory house rapidly rebuilds and Gregory welcomes in a new guest. One of the last things we see is the protagonist's shadow being in the shape of a mouse.
Our new guest looks really depressed, don't you think?
And that's all of Volume 2. I actually really like this protagonist. I think I prefer her to Steven because she actually does have some agency. Like, she fights and defeats some of the guests and horrors of Gregory House on her own. While Steven is just kind of there. And that's why it's such a bummer to know that we never see or hear from her ever again. She doesn't even have a name. It's so weird because her fate is way more connected to Gregory and Gregory House than Steven's. She in the end becomes fucking Gregory's bride or something. But nope, she doesn't exist anymore. Just forget about her. While Steven will continue to have his little cameos. I mean, I think they should both have their cameos. I don't know. It's just weird. But rewatching this volume made me realize that I guess her becoming bride of Gregory was foreshadowed fairly well. Cactus Gunman presuming they're together and the whole, marrying Gregory fantasy. But one thing that's kind of is that this volume had a bit more just random and disconnected, almost filler episodes. Going back to the 3-act story structure, I would say the final act of volume 2 only really starts with Neko Zombie, which means that only the last 3 episodes of the show are actually the ending. I guess that makes sense, because for a show that airs at 11:55 p.m, it would make sense that most episodes are just non sequitur, random, ooh, wacky spooky shit. But the episodes having this interconnected flowing story makes it so much cooler. I'm just imagining some super fan in 1999 Japan just tuning in every fucking night to watch Gregory Horror Show, and that's such a cool vibe. I wish I could experience that. All in all, this volume feels like a rehash of the first volume, where we get a slightly better protagonist, but slightly more meh episodes in the middle. Now that we're done with these fairly similar volumes, we're moving on to volume 3, which changes everything. The consequences will never be the same ever again. okay? This is like 28 9/11. So a third volume of Gregory Horror Show completely ditches 3 core staples of the show. First, there's no more first-person perspective. And I'd say this is like the least noticeable and like the most I'm okay with change, because throughout volume 1 and 2, as I said, they were just kind of like drop it. So, you know, it's not that much different than normal. The second change, Gregory is now the protagonist. There's no more like self-insert main character or any characters in the story, which I think is a shame, because I think that was like a big part of the whole experience, is like you're stepping into this completely different reality. And now for the final change, no more Gregory House. The entire season is set in a train, or like 99% of the season is set in a train, and that's why it's called The Last Train. Now, I'm not saying that these changes have ruined Gregory Horror Show. I actually liked this volume quite a lot. It's like very fun. But I am saying that there's a noticeable stripping down of what makes Gregory Horror Show Gregory Horror Show. So in my mind, there's like 5 core staples of Gregory Horror Show. Okay, the 5 core staples. I'm really proud of this little arrangement, by the way. But yeah, we have the first person perspective, the self-insert character, or, you know, just like an ordinary, just some guy character. Now, you might think that these two are one and the same, but no. In the PS2 game, it does have like a self-insert, like normal person character, but the game is from the third perspective. So they're different properties, okay? But anyway, next we have the location, Gregory House, and then the art style, you know, like the cubic paper doll aesthetic, and finally the wacky cast of characters. Now, Volume 3 has single-handedly brought down these 5 staples to only the 2, the art style and the cast of characters. I'm not saying that like this volume is bad because it only has these 2 things. I'm just saying like I hope they don't take away any more things. Like I would love to see these first 3 staples back. Like I think Gregory Horror Show works best when it's like all of these aspects combined. Okay, with all that said, let's get into the show itself. So the opening of this volume is much shorter than the previous openings. There's no more monologuing, we just get a shot of the train zipping past with Gregory looking out the window. And I think that's a really smart change, because when your show is only 2 minutes and 10 seconds long, that opening monologue can really bite you in the ass. But after the opening, there's a really cool and dramatic scene of Gregory boarding the train. It's good to see that they're putting the fact that it's not in first person anymore to good use, at least. Once Gregory boards the train, he sits across Stephen Haniwa, and this is actually the first time his name was confirmed. I was calling him Stephen from the beginning, but up until volume 3 no one knew his name. It looks like they don't know each other, so I guess this is a prequel. After a bit of small talk, Stephen gets off to go back home to his family, but it turns out it's a graveyard, and Stephen's been dead since 1976. Do not ask me what the hell this is supposed to mean. It just does not fit in the lore. I think they just did this because I thought they would be cool, like he's been dead the whole time, but it just makes no sense. Gregory goes back to his seat after complaining that the heater's broken. He then gets drunk to warm up a bit and barges in on a pair of zombies. They then get drunk together. In their drunken stupor, one of the zombies complains that it's too hot and opens the window. The 2 zombies get blown away to ashes by the wind. Is this like a well-known zombie thing in Japan? Like, I've never heard of this, but it happens multiple times, like zombies getting killed by wind. While at the station, Gregory buys genetically modified peanuts from Salesboy, and then Clockmaster buys the radioactive peanuts. A bit later, Clockmaster almost dies from eating radioactive peanuts. After seeing that, Gregory brags about choosing the better option. But in the end, he switches to natural peanuts because the genetically modified peanuts contain Mini Black Duck 1 and Mini Black Duck 2. Wow, what a timely and biting commentary on GMOs and processed foods. It really makes you think. While returning from the toilet, Gregory notices big gentleman, going full Karen on Hell's Chef. Later, Gregory goes back to his seat and gets served a suspiciously fresh cut of pork. Now I'm not sure, but I think this is the first confirmed murder on Gregory Horror Show. Like, there were the 2 zombies that died, but that was an accident. This was a full-on murder by Hell's Chef. Gregory gives a bone to Axe Dog Boy because he fell down. Later, while looking for medicine because he got sick, he accidentally pulls out a bottle of poison instead. The Axe Kid and Dad come over to thank Gregory for the bone and end up taking the poison before Gregory could say anything because they got a splitting headache. They actually do end up feeling much better and run off. Gregory then tries a drop of poison too, but almost dies. Cactus Gunman and Cactus Girl appear in front of the train. Cactus Gunman tries to make it stop, but gets run over. He wakes up in the train next to Gregory and Cactus Girl. He explains that he tried to start a revolution in Cactus Land but failed, so now he's running away by train. But it turns out this train is heading to Cactus Land, not from Cactus Land, so they jump off the train and run away. The train is forced to stop because a bunch of samurai warriors are blocking it. Gregory is badgered by one of the warriors who is convinced Gregory is his lord. To get rid of him, Gregory seeks the warrior on Hell's Chef, who quickly and stylishly dispatches of the warrior. Gregory bumps into the crying lost doll and tries to help find her doll. So he even falls for her lost doll bullshit. I guess he really doesn't know any of the guests yet. This has to be a prequel season. Gregory is actually really sweet to the lost doll, but then he gets got by her bullshit. He then cuts her puppet strings with a comically large pair of scissors and hands it over to the lost and found. While there, the conductor informs him they found what he was looking for. A weird little doll version of himself. They tell Gregory that they found it in a woman's bed in one of the sleeper carts. What a creep! Gregory tries buying a lunchbox from Salesboy, but it turns out Fat Chicken bought all the lunches. That's actually this character's name, Fat Chicken. Gregory and Fat Chicken start chatting, and it turns out Fat Chicken is on his way to a new job. He says that he doesn't know what the job is, but that he can eat all he wants there and it will make children happy. He says that some people will even honor him during Christmas time. Totally random fun fact, did you know that in Japan it's tradition to eat fried chicken for Christmas? That's because in the 70s KFC had a marketing push in Japan where they just started saying that eating fried chicken is a big Christmas thing, and it actually worked. To this day, Christmas is all about fried chicken in Japan. Anyways, the train stops at a chicken shop and Fat Chicken gets off saying that this is his stop. Gregory orders fried chicken. Bonsai Kabuki goes around the train car selling tickets for his show and watching people's fantasies. He then gets sucked on by Catherine. Then Bonsai Kabuki, drained of all his blood, barely does his show. Bonehead collapses and Gregory helps him. Then Bonehead starts rambling on about finding the remains of the elusive rainbow dragon. He also trauma dumps about his wife dying and how she probably wishes he would give up and die already. Then the train stops because of a mysterious tunnel blocking the way. Bonehead rushes in saying how his wife is talking to him from the great beyond, saying that the rainbow dragon is in that tunnel. And the rainbow dragon actually was there, but as soon as Bonehead starts digging, the tunnel collapses. Bonehead's wife starts cackling as he is buried alive. Gregory notices Sleepy Sheep crying because he had a nightmare. He then tucks him to sleep and stays with him. I actually love how sweet Gregory is to kids. It really makes you wonder how James turned out to be such a little shit. Sleepy Sheep ends up having another nightmare, but it turns out it's Gregory's nightmare about Gregory Mama. Through Sleepy Sheep, Nightmare Gregory Mama threatens to haunt Gregory too. In order to escape Gregory Mama's wrath, he pulls an all-nighter. Judgment Boy is back. He judges the train itself, saying it's gonna take a wrong turn and lead its passengers to the depths of despair. The train starts doubting itself, but Gregory knocks some sense in it and tells it to proceed straight ahead. The train runs over Judgment Boy. The train passes through a warp in time and space, which causes Gregory to be tormented by his mom. He is then transported to Gregory House, and Gregory hands Gregory the keys to Gregory House. The train is out of the warp, but Gregory still has Gregory's Gregory House keys. He ponders if this means he should go back to Gregory House. So this isn't a prequel then. Interesting. Gregory walks by Trap Mouse and out of curiosity tries touching it and gets bitten by the mouse. Trap Mouse apologizes, but her best friend and fellow Trap Atmos explains it's not their fault, because they instinctively bite anyone who gets close to them. Gregory teases them by saying that their friendship isn't stronger than their instincts. To prove him wrong, the trap mice sit next to each other, but after a bit of struggling, they succumb to their instincts and bite the shit out of each other. Gregory notices the horrible stench covering the train and decides to find the source of it. He discovers the sentient sarcophagus is the one who was stinking the place up. The sarcophagus tricks Gregory into opening him, hoping to spread chaos once his mummy lord awakens. But it turns out the mummy inside him has rotted away. They then dump the mummy and the sarcophagus outside. Interesting little detail, we only see the mummy's arm, but it's not in papercraft doll style. It's like a normal human hand. Gregory tries buying a beer from salesboy, but can't find his wallet. Turns out James stole his and a bunch of other passengers' wallets. James dumps all the wallets on Gregory and gets off the train, causing everyone to think Gregory is the one who stole the wallets. The poor conductor boards the train and tries playing some classical music for Gregory. Gregory says that his music is lame AF and plays some bodacious rap on his totally tubular boombox. As revenge, poor conductor teleports the entire train onto a vinyl. Gregory climbs onto the train and tells it how to escape. The train successfully escapes the vinyl dimension by making the record skip. Gregory then raps.
Yo, you gotta wake up. You're a whack MC who ain't worth your makeup. Yo, you better think fast before those crows decide to eat you for breakfast. Yeah, you're gonna get chomped on, so take that back to Compton. Yo, yeah, said yeah. Oh yeah!
He actually says the line, "Take that shit to Compton." This is insane. Roulette Boy makes Gregory play a game. It's pretty much the same thing from Volume 1, but with a train. Then there's some deep BS about how only he can decide where the goal is.
Hey, where is the goal anyway?
The goal? You have to decide!
I have to decide.
Yeah-huh. Hurry up and decide! You've made your decision. Bye-bye!
Gregory gets scammed by public phone by making Gregory think he is talking to Gregory Mama. The real Gregory Mama then kills public phone for impersonating her. Gregory calls his mama bitch.
Too bad Mama isn't flattered by imitations. That old bitch is terrifying.
I can hear you, Gregory.
It turns out the train is fueled by lost souls, but they were being overworked, causing the train to stop. Death appears to tell Gregory that he's rushing things and that it's his job to let souls wander. Gregory ignores Death and pushes the souls even further in order to get to the lost world. The train breaks down, causing Gregory to go on a vision quest. Gregory cries. Gregory relaxes on a beach but is interrupted by Neko Zombie, telling him to wake up. Gregory throws a tantrum, breaking the beach illusion, which reveals that he is still stuck in the broken down train.
What?
Gregory reminisces about all the people he met on the train before having an existential crisis.
My existence means absolutely nothing. My whole life is just chance and coincidence, coming from nowhere, going nowhere. Nothing has any meaning for me anymore.
Gregory experiences true ego death.
My conscience is no longer binding me, for I myself am the conscience. I am none other than ambition itself. I am the water rat without a body, running along the circuit of souls. All will flow as all is meant to.
The train goes through some sort of digi-dimension. The camera then passes out to reveal the train is a toy James has been playing with in Gregory's house. Gregory appears, reprimanding James for playing with his train called Ambition. He then takes the train back to his room and places it next to a model of Gregory's house and starts playing with the train. In the train, we can see Gregory playing with the train. So that was pretty wild. All in all, I think this is a great season. I do miss the haunted house vibes of Gregory House, but at least like in return, we got some like really stylish and out there episodes. But it does feel more of like a spin-off than an actual season or volume of the show. I mean, the ending like confirms that the entire season was Gregory and or James playing with the toy train. Like, you can't get any more spin-offy than that. But yeah, let's move on from a season that felt like a spin-off to a season that's an actual spin-off. So this volume wasn't part of the original run, and it only has 12 episodes. The Black Heart is actually very similar to The Last Train in scope and setup of the whole season, but this time the protagonist is Catherine, and it's about her running a hospital. And no, there's no first-person perspective. Volume 2 was actually the last Gregory Horror Show thing to have a first-person perspective. Well, technically, Gallery Tour was, because it, released after all of these seasons, but like in the context of me talking about these things, Volume 2 was the last first-person thing. Anyways, Catherine is the main character, the hospital is the location, let's get into it. The opening is again super short, it's just a shot of a lizard and of a really gaudy neon sign for the hospital. Man, only after watching this season and this opening did I realize that Catherine is supposed to be a lizard. Like, this whole time I thought she was a snake. When the logo appears, Catherine announces the episode, just like this.
Case 1. The Sigh of an Angel.
We get an establishing shot of the hospital. Catherine then kills another patient because she couldn't resist draining him of all his blood. To cheer her up, Gregory tells her there's a nice young man waiting for a blood transfusion. When Catherine realizes he's a zombie, she opens the window, killing him. A little bit of a side note here. Gregory is a patient at the hospital during the entire season, but it's never explained why. At least not in the actual show, but on the official website. In the description of this volume, they say Gregory was in the hospital due to heartache, having run his hotel business into the ground. The hospital was the renovated Gregory house. That's actually crazy. I thought the hospital was like next to the Gregory house or something. That's really sad that there's no more Gregory house. Oh well. Dr. Fritz examines Axe Dog and realizes that he's been long dead. Catherine tries resisting sucking on the doctor, but then Gregory appears reading some vampire smut book out loud, pushing Catherine over the edge. Later, the doctor emerges out of his own grave and throws a temper tantrum, giving Catherine the ick.
I can't stand weak men.
Cactus Gunman enters the hospital and passes out. Catherine nurses him back to health, and during this she falls in love with him. Unable to let him go, she goes full misery on his ass and locks him up in his room. Catherine catches Gregory reading about some shiny hunk in her diary and beats him up with her needle. Gregory finds the shiny hunk Catherine was talking about, and it's Judgment Boy Gold. Later, Gregory walks in on Catherine and Gold Boy being lovey-dovey, but Gregory slips and activates the saw-like death trap Judgment Boy Gold was strapped onto for some reason. This causes Catherine to realize he's only gold-plated.
You're only gold-plated?
The next day, Gregory notices she's wearing a gold-plated piece of junk earring. Catherine falls for the hospital health chef and sneaks him a handmade lunch. She comes back later to find he left a note saying it was great. This goes on for a while, and the notes even start asking for specific food and shit. Turns out it was Gregory who was eating her food, not health chef. After killing Hell's Chef, she hangs Gregory by the tail outside. This is gonna be a recurring bit, by the way. Dr. Fritz bumps into a warrior who's convinced that the doctor is his lord. Seeing a chance for revenge, he tells the warrior to kill Catherine. Instead of killing her, the warrior falls for Catherine. Catherine gets her fortune read by the frog fortune teller. The frog says that her true love will give her a bouquet of red roses. Later, Gregory appears with a bouquet of red roses. When she asks him what he's doing with those flowers, Gregory explains that there was a young man with stomach pains who wanted to get checked in, but after Gregory told him about the hospital, the man dropped the flowers and ran. Catherine hangs Gregory by the tail. Stephen Haniwa is here to get checked out by the doctor, but the doctor says that he's just suffering from stress because he lost his job, his wife, and his kids. Catherine naturally falls for him. While Catherine is consoling him, Stephen gets a call from his wife saying how she wants to get back together. Catherine gives him such a strong bear, or should I say lizard, hug that is so strong he gets squished into a teacup. James barges in on Gregory reading a nudie mag. While Gregory was saying hello to Gregory Mama, she then notices James reading the nudie mag. He blames it on Gregory.
Gregory, You're pathetic.
Gregory then blames it on Dr. Fritz. Gregory and Doctor get hanged by the tail. Cactus Girl attacks Catherine. After Catherine bitch slaps Cactus Girl, she explains that she's here to avenge her brother. That's when Catherine remembers Cactus Gunman and the fact that she locked him up. Catherine leads Cactus Girl to him, but they find Gregory and Gunman blackout drunk. Catherine and Cactus Girl lock them back up and go drinking.
Face it, honey, men are all the same.
Unable to choose between love and her career, Catherine quits and decides to go on a love quest. Much to the Doctor's chagrin, Gregory convinces her to stay. She throws herself into her work and almost kills every patient in the hospital.
Okay, who's up next? Who's ready for their checkup?
Dr. Catherine and Nurse Cactus Girl reminisce about Dr. Fritz walking out of the hospital because Catherine killed every single patient. He then gets run over by Hell's taxi, forcing Catherine and Cactus Girl to rise to the occasion. Later, Catherine is talking to her BF on the phone, saying how she can't see him tonight as she needs to balance her career and her love life. Turns out she can have it all.
See you in the next trip.
And that's volume 4. I think it was really cute. It was like very fun. And I think it being 12 episodes actually helped it like not overstay its welcome, because that was like a problem I had with The Last Train. It really had like a few episodes that was just like, okay, nothing really happens. I mean, same thing happens in volume 1 and 2, but because of the more elaborate like overarching story and like a more elaborate escape ending, you don't really notice that like some things are inconsequential. While in The Last Train, like as soon as an episode ends, you can tell like, oh, this is just okay. I don't have much more to say about this season. It's a cute bite-sized look into like one of Gregory Horror Show's most iconic characters, and that's about it. But the end of this volume marks the end of Gregory Horror Show as a TV show. As of making this video, there's no other TV show Gregory Horror Show projects. But if there's no more volumes, what's there to talk about? The PS2 game, the 2000s phone game, the manga entry, which isn't just an adaptation of the Gregory Horror Show story in manga format, it's like a completely new story. That an adaptation does exist, it's literally just like screenshots with like speech bubbles on top. Oh, and also there is another, other than this one, completely new manga story, and it's like about Neko Zombie or something, but we can only like, there's only a few pages of it out there, so you know, sadly this is all I'm gonna be talking about that one. The Japan-only mobile gacha game, the failed Kickstarter for a new Gregory Horror Show game and show, the successful Kickstarter for a new Gregory Horror Show game, and finally, the demo for said successful Kickstarter new Gregory Horror Show game. Well, this game is arguably the most popular Gregory Horror Show thing out there. There's like a ton of videos on it, and it's like super expensive on eBay. And because it's so popular, I will not be talking about it in detail. Yeah, I'm just better than all those other YouTubers. I'm just, you know, I have integrity. I have a backbone, for Christ's sakes. I'm kidding. I'm sorry, okay? This topic doesn't really need another yapper to fill the yapper YouTube void. There's like much better yappers than me that have already covered this topic, so watch all of these. It would be really funny if I just didn't put that in. I just look like an idiot. Watch this. Watch this, watch that, watch that, watch this, and this. Oh, but before I move on, one very validating thing about this game is that even Capcom agrees with me on what makes Gregory Horror Show Gregory Horror Show. I say that because this game is set in the Gregory house and you play as a self-insert character that just stumbled into the hotel. It isn't in first person though, but still, we went from having just 2 Gregory Horror Show staples to having 4. I'll take it. Okay, one more thing before I move on. I was just reading the summary of this game's plot, and it weirdly has like a lot of the same plot points as Volume 2's story. The player, before leaving, gives Neko Zombie a red handkerchief to tie over his foot, which has been injured by the ball and chain used to imprison them. Neko Zombie burns down the hotel, destroying it and killing everyone inside, notably including himself, Gregory, Gregory's mother, and all of the guests. Gregory House is then shown being reconstructed, and Gregory has a room prepared for the player when they return. Wow, so this is like exactly the same as the ending of Volume 2. Like literally the exact same footage of the last 2 episodes. That's really interesting. Okay, now I'm done. I really can't be talking anymore about this game. There's so much to go through. Like the 2004 Japan-only phone game! While this game originally came out in 2004, they actually ported it to the Switch and Steam as part of the Gmod Archive series. Gmod is a game dev company that like back in the day made a ton of surprisingly good phone games. They even made multiple Persona and Last Bible games. I wish I played this game so I could talk about it more, but I can't, it's only in Japanese. It looks so cool though, like it's surprisingly deep for a phone game. Apparently it even has 3 different endings. Why couldn't I have like really good phone games like this back in the day? I can't think of a single phone game that I played back then that was like this elaborate and this pretty and this cool. Like there was that one like Ratchet & Clank game, and it was a Ratchet & Clank game for a Ratchet & Clank game that I didn't play, but I still played it and liked it because I played the original Ratchet & Clank game demo. So you know, that was a good one. That was a good one. Fuck, okay. Back to Gregory Horror Show, sorry. I got super sidetracked. But, I mean, it's a phone game, you know, it's a Gregory Horror Show phone game that I can't play because I don't know Japanese. The only plot I could find out is like, you're a guest and you're trying to escape Gregory House. Pretty standard when it comes to Gregory Horror Show. And that's it, you know, it looks cool. On to the next thing. This manga was such a pleasant surprise. I didn't really have like any expectations going into it, but it's such a cool take on Gregory Horror Show. It does take like a few liberties with the formula of Gregory Horror Show, but for the most part, they're like really good takes. The manga came out in 2007 and it was made by Suzuki Sanami. His most famous work is Black Rock shooter Innocent Soul, which I've never heard of, but apparently it's a manga adaptation of a PSP game set in an alternate dimension of an OVA. Anyways, Suzuki's art style is really good. I really like it, and I think it's a very good fit for Gregory Horror Show. I mean, it's no cubes, but it's the next best thing. So this time around, our protagonist is 22-year-old Toru Takanozuka, a self-proclaimed freeter. In Japan, a freeter is anyone aged 18 to 34 that does not have a full-time job, not known for particularly high social status. The story starts with Toru going to a realtor in hopes of finding an affordable apartment in Tokyo. The realtor pretty much freaks out when Toru introduces himself as a 22-year-old freeter. He then tries telling Toru that it's pretty much impossible for him to find a place as he's unemployed. Toru starts begging the realtor to help him, saying how he's been to 7 other places already, and that's when the realtor remembers a place that's perfect for Toru. Enter Gregory House. Man, look at this art, it's so good. I love the almost fisheye lens perspective to it. And there's so many panels that are just upside down or warped, it's so sick. Next, Gregory arrives to introduce himself, and Toru is immediately shocked that Gregory is a walking, talking mouse. But seeing as the realtor and the passersby are treating Gregory like normal, Toru decides that he should just chill out and not think about it. When the realtor introduces Toru to Gregory as a freeter, Gregory bursts out laughing and then the realtor joins in. Toru then tries to leave, but by almost some otherworldly force he is pulled back. He tries resisting, but before he knows it, he's inside Gregory House. As Gregory is giving Toru a tour of the hotel, Toru can see and hear all sorts of creepy and unsettling things. And that's chapter 1. And before we move on to chapter 2, I just want to discuss some changes that we can already see to the Gregory Horror Show formula. First of all, this time around everyone knows where Gregory House is. It's just in the middle of Tokyo. And like, everyone is just cool with a creepy little mouse running a hotel. And honestly, that's like really progressive of them. But to offset that pretty big change, the manga is also a return to form in some other ways, because it brings back the whole self-insert character, or, you know, like a character that's just a guy from the normal world. And not only is he just some guy, he's a freeter, and I can't believe it took them this long to have a protagonist that's like a neat or a freeter, because like it fits so well. The aimlessness, you know, like, oh, I don't know what to do with myself, I'm just a lost soul. That is like such a neat thing to do and such a Gregory Horror Show thing to be about. Okay, back to the manga. Toru's room is 404, and that's a nice touch since 4 is an unlucky number in Japan because it's pronounced the same way the word death is. It's kind of like the number 13 in the West. I'm actually surprised they didn't do this bit in a previous Gregory Horror Show thing. Anyway, in the room, Gregory starts asking Toru about his life and what his dream is. Turns out, Toru doesn't really have any specific dreams or hobbies, and is pretty aimless in life. Gregory then starts mocking and teasing Toru, and in the middle of arguing with a mouse, Toru realizes how insane his situation is and tries running away. Hearing the commotion, all the residents of Gregory House come out and freak Toru out even more. That's when Gregory appears, telling Toru that Gregory House is where dreams come true, and if he wants his dream to come true, he should stay. Toru decides to stay. Gregory wakes Toru up and leads him to the dining area to eat breakfast with the other residents. That's when we get introduced to some of the residents of Gregory House. We see Cactus Gunman, Health Chef, and Catherine. Oh my, Catherine is looking quite lovely this time around. Catherine tries seducing Toru but gives up after she realizes he reeks of tobacco. Hey, I'm not a smoker. Just saying, Catherine. At first, Toru thinks they're all weirdos, but Gregory tells him he's actually envious of them because they're pursuing their goal, while Toru is always being pushed around. Back in Toru's room, while thinking on what Gregory said, he is attacked by a lost doll, who apparently fell in love with him at first sight. Being late with rent, Toru is desperate to find a job. Hearing this, one of the residents offers to pay Toru to clean his room as he can't leave his bed. Toru accepts the job, and while cleaning the room, the resident tells Toru to give up on finding his dream, saying that it doesn't matter how you live, as one day you're going to die, and that's why he doesn't bother with doing anything. When Toru writes him off as a neat, the resident tries to make Toru understand his way of thinking by describing all the scary possibilities of the outside world. As he's listing the hypothetical scenarios, Toru starts experiencing them, and then Toru finally breaks free and removes the blanket from the resident to reveal dead body, or zombie depending on the translation. Toru thinks it's a corpse and runs out, but Gregory calms him down and explains that he's still alive, but that he's also dead at the same time. He says that dead body is afraid to do anything, but also afraid of dying, so what's a body to do? Dead body yells at Toru to get back to cleaning. In order to get some money, Toru took a part-time job at a yakisoba stand during a festival. The owner, acting overly sympathetic to Toru, tells him he can leave early, and he also pays him very well. Toru then decides to look around the festival. While looking around, a goldfish scooping stand catches his eye. Turns out the stand is run by none other than Neko Zombie. Toru tries leaving, but Neko Zombie manages to entice him to stay and scoop some fish. Toru is then transported to this nightmare fish scooping realm, where he is lambasted by Neko Zombie for treating the goldfish badly. But then Toru realizes that all these goldfish are his dreams and possible realities. At first he gets choice paralysis, but because he's still being chased by Neko Zombie in turtle form, Toru hastily tries getting too large a fish. Gregory then shows up telling Toru it wasn't very realistic of him to catch that fish. He then catches and gives Toru one of the goldfish. Later, while admiring the goldfish, Toru is suddenly grabbed by a woman who for some reason calls him dad. The mystery woman tries leading him back home, but he just sighs, presuming she's just another one of the weirdo residents. Suddenly, Judgment Boy appears. He hits them with a hypothetical. Will Toru litter his cigarettes again or dispose them in an ashtray? Judgment Boy judges that Toru will litter his next cigarette, causing the entire festival to become an ocean of fire. Toru brushes him off, saying how he'll dispose of his cigarettes properly from now on, but they're transported into the ocean of fire dimension. While being tormented and chased by Judgment Boy, the woman properly disposes of Toru's cigarette. Judgment Boy clicks his tongue and leaves them alone. Toru runs away from the woman and goes back to Gregory House. As soon as he enters, he is once again attacked by Lost Doll. That's when the woman appears again, yeets Lost Doll and slaps Toru for being with a woman. Toru loses his shit on her, saying how he isn't her dad and that he's just a 22-year-old freeter and a disappointment. That's when Gregory appears again to say that she isn't a resident. At that moment, Judgment Boy reappears and the goldfish bag breaks. In the midst of all this chaos, Judgment Boy tries judging the woman, but she just throws some flowers in his face in order to put the goldfish in the flower vase. She then announces she's moving in Gregory's house. Toru is on the phone bragging about life in the big city to a high school friend of his. He is then interrupted by the woman. While chatting, Toru and the woman are interrupted by the little shit James. Damn it, they made him so cute in the manga. Look at him with that giant lollipop. Gregory introduces them to James, and James then asks the woman to play tag. She accepts, and then James explains the rules. He's going to be it, he can use weapons, and whoever dies loses. Toru and the woman start running away from the psychotic child. While running away, Toru keeps instinctively grabbing the woman's hand. After some more chasing and silly James antics, the woman grabs James and reprimands him. James then runs away crying to Gregory, and Gregory apologizes for James's actions, saying that there's no malice behind his actions, only innocence. The woman notices Toru's hand is hurt and she bandages him up in his room. They then get to chatting about Toru's dream, the goldfish's name, and finally the woman introduces herself as Kimiko Takahashi. Later, Kimiko tries making a phone call, but Gregory tells her the phone doesn't work, which makes Kimiko wonder who Toru was talking to earlier. I'm not really sure what's happening in this chapter. The translation kinda takes a dip in quality, so it'll be a bit tough to follow. While jogging, Toru comes across some people who I think are being trapped into an MLM by Trap Mouse. Then we see Toru digging something, and also Bonsai Kabuki is here. I think he's here because Toru is fantasizing about Kimiko. Then Kimiko shows up and asks what he's doing. Toru then kinda rambles on about this and that, and his back gives out, which makes Kimiko cry. Trap Mouse then reappears to mock him, but now Gregory is here too. And of course, yeah, Bonsai Kabuki is here too, yeah, they're all here. Man, the art is so cool, but I have no idea what's happening. I think it's just like Toru losing his grip on reality. Kimiko tries to snap him back and calls him dad while holding his hand. We then get a close-up panel of Kimiko's hands. They're wrinkled. Very interesting. Toru pulls away, sinking deeper into insanity until he lands on a game board. And it's Roulette Boy time. I love his design, he is so cute. Gregory and Toru are both dragged into Roulette Boy's game. They're basically playing the game of life. They have to keep spinning and playing the game until they reach the spot representing their age. At first, Gregory doesn't want to play, but Roulette Boy convinces him to play by saying he'll learn Toru's secret if he does. They start as babies, and each turn they age up a bit while Roulette Boy announces what they were doing at that age. Things are going pretty well until Toru finally reaches 22. He thinks he's done, but Roulette Boy says that at that age he got hired at a company. He keeps going. Age 25. You find relief that you found a regular job. You get married to Kimiko. Age 28. You have 2 children. Age 49. Your children left the house. You live alone with your wife. Work. Overtime. Receptions. Age 50. Your wife dies. You go back to work. This is your life and you can't change it. You don't like it. You hate it. You want help. You wish it was all a dream. Return to 22 years. That was so good. Like, fuck, man. I am blown away, actually. I mean, you could see the twist, especially when Roulette Boy explained the rules of the game. I knew exactly what they were going for, but it was still done so well. I really like this chapter. And the reason Kimiko kept calling him dad is because, you know, he's the dad of the family and she's the mom of the family. So it's kind of a good foreshadowing thing. And speaking of foreshadowing, this now explains why the realtor was like so freaked out when Toru introduced himself as a 22-year-old freeter. Like, he was freaking about the fact that he's like saying that he's 22, when I guess to him he just looked like a 50-year-old man. Man, this manga is so good. I really wasn't expecting it to be like this good. But let's go back to the story. Only 2 chapters left. Unable to come to terms with the truth, Toru is torn between staying at Gregory's house or going back home. That's when Angel Dog and Devil Dog appear. This time they're 2 different characters. They split Toru into 2 versions of him, one that wants to stay and one that wants to leave. The 2 Torus then start fighting. Then Kimiko comes in and says that after staying here for a while, she realized she doesn't have a dad, or should I say husband. She wishes him good luck and leaves. Toru then realizes how lonely he is without her and chases after her. Then we see a panel of Gregory looking ominously at them, but then he cracks a smile, letting them go. Sadly, the other residents aren't so kind and they're doing everything they can to stop them. Toru manages to escape with Kimiko by realizing that he needs help and that he isn't alone. We then see Kimiko and Toru at their real ages living their normal life. Their kids are visiting them, and even though they're acting a bit spoiled, it's clear that they are a loving family. After that, we get a set of panels from the first person perspective. We're walking up to Gregory house and Gregory welcomes us in as the newest guest. That was so good. Like, they really get what Gregory Horror Show is about. And I love that the very last part is in first person. That and the little papercraft doll figures in the board game are such a nice little like nod to the actual OG Gregory Horror Show. It's awesome. I really didn't expect going into this to be like so good. And this might be like my favorite Gregory Horror Show thing now. If not the #1 Gregory Horror Show, then it's like somewhere at the top. It's like It's blowing me away, dude. It's fucking sucking and fucking me. It's so good, man. Fuck. But the only thing that like I can think of that I didn't like about this manga, aside from the iffy translation, but that's, you know, that's not the manga's fault. It was just made for the Japanese audiences. I didn't really like how they made the guests try to stop Kimiko and Toru at the end, because they're not the bad guys. Most of the guests are just kind of like living their lives, you know, they don't care specifically about the protagonist. And I was actually very happy that this manga kind of like finally confirms that the point of Gregory House and the point of Gregory is that he's like helping the protagonist work through their shit. Like, he's stressing them out, he's freaking them out, but at the end he was like happy to see them leave, and he was like, hell yeah, dude, you worked through your shit. And I don't know why they had to like kind of offset that by making the other guests evil. I think it would be really cool if they were all kind of working towards that. Especially because at the beginning of the manga, they really didn't care about them, the guests, about Kimiko and Toru. And then at the end, like, we're fucking gonna kill you. If you're not with us, my life has no meaning. Like, what? You know? Aside from that, I loved it from start to finish. I mean, this is like literally just like, what, 1 or 2 pages of them fighting them. It's a very ignorable little thingamabob. But now that we're done with the manga, it's kind of all downhill from here. Like, I'm not saying it's just atrocious. It's just like insultingly bad. It's just kind of like, okay, you'll see when we get to it. So yeah, prepare to be disappointed. I only found out about this thing at like the very end of making this video. And boy, am I glad that I caught it. Because if I didn't talk about this, then probably some fucking fan that has a whole Tumblr page about Gregory Horror Show would comment something like, you didn't talk about the 2016 cancelled Mystery Holiday season of Gregory Horror Show. Do better research next time. Fucking bitch, I'm talking about it right now. I didn't miss it. I caught it, okay? It's happening right fucking now. Fuck you and your potential fucking fake, not real, hypothetical comment. Jeez. Sorry. Ooh. I don't know where that came from. Ooh. Anyways. But yeah, Mystery Holiday doesn't exist. But if it did exist, it would be about the Gregory trying to corrupt children to destroy the world, and also death would buy souls from Gregory. I don't know, like, not much is known about this show. They just announced it in 2016, put out like a series of line stickers to promote it, and then never talked about it ever again. To be fair, they never canceled it outright, but like, I'm pretty sure it's cancelled. But thanks to the line stickers, we kind of know what the show would look like. Interesting. I mean, it's fine. Some of the designs are good, but some I really don't like. Like Neko Zombie, my poor little Neko Zombie, what have they done to you? Cactus Girl looks super cute though. Oh, and so does Catherine. Also, I love how Bonsai Kabuki is straight up the exact same as his cube version. And that's it for Mystery Holiday. Case closed. Like, in 2018, they even put out a second wave of line stickers, but this time in the style of the original Gregory Horror Show. And to me, that's like confirmation that this show is cancelled and that it's not a thing anymore. So, next. So, Lost Qualia. It's a Japan-only mobile gacha game released in 2018. I really had like no expectations about this, but I did boot it up on my phone just as a formality. And it did, okay, I will admit, it did have a few interesting things about it. So I will be talking about it, but just a teensy amount, just a tiny bit, just a tiny bit. So the story of this game is that you, the player, show up at Gregory's house, but Gregory is unable to welcome you. That's a serious first, because the previous guest, known as That Man, became so powerful that he took over the hotel. So now Gregory enlists your help to free him and the other guests of That Man. Somehow in that plot a scene with like 6 Gregorys fits in. I don't know how, but that's something that happens in the opening cutscene. Now the gameplay. Think of any mobile gacha game ever, and that's it, that's the gameplay. You open packs of cards that are just screenshots of the show. The cards either unlock a new guest you can put in your party, or an ability you can use in a fight. And then you go on quests where you go through waves of enemies with a party of 3 guests. Apparently the 1.0 version of the game had different gameplay. They overhauled it in the 2.0 update, and they added a new character, girl guest, because at first era was just a boy guest. After that, they put out another huge update, the 3.0 update. A little guest room feature was added and it's so cute. Like at any time you can enter your room and walk around. You can even decorate with furniture as you progress through the game. There's also a talk function, which is just watch 2 random guests interact function. This little feature is nice because it allowed me to hear the Japanese voices of some of these characters for the first time. Oh, also, the 3.0 update apparently did a huge graphical overhaul. Not like you'd be able to tell though, like this game looks rough. I don't mean the character models, that's kinda impossible to fuck up, you know, they're just cubes. I mean the UI. Like damn, this looks ancient. But the 3.0 update happened in 2021. Like that's not that long ago, it shouldn't look this bad. All in all, this is a fairly mediocre gacha game and an incredibly mediocre Gregory Horror Show thing. But I'm pretty sure that like the fans at the time were happy to see this because it was the first Gregory Horror Show thing in 11 years. So you know, they'll fucking take anything at this point. I, however, was not impressed. Now that we're done with Lost Qualia, let's go into the future. Well, kinda. Not really though. Not at all. We're still firmly in the past/present. Yep. I lied to you. The future! Earlier this year, Naomi Iwata, you know, the creator of Gregory Horror Show, started a Kickstarter campaign to bring back Gregory Horror Show in the form of a game and a show. And if you thought a single Kickstarter goal for 2 different projects was a bit much, you'd be right, it failed. The Kickstarter failed. They were only able to reach about half of their 18 million yen goal, but worry not. 1 month after the failure of this campaign, they started another campaign, but this time just for the video game. And they managed to reach the goal. Yippee! Congrats! Woohoo! They actually managed to blow past their 4 million yen goal. And the reason why the goal was so much lower than the first one was because it wasn't a campaign to make a Gregory Horror Show game. It was a campaign to translate a Gregory Horror Show game. The game itself was already successfully crowdfunded back in 2023 on the Japanese crowdfunding site Campfire. The game was crowdfunded, the demo came out actually earlier this month, and I played it. And I will get into that whole thing, but first I want to talk about the little Kickstarter show that couldn't. Their plan to bring back Gregory Horror Show was to make another season that's very similar to The Bloody Cart, but this time instead of it being about Catherine running a hospital, it would be about Hell's Chef running Hell's Kitchen. Gregory, the owner of the restaurant, would be catering to the customers, while Hell's Chef and Hell's Chef Jr. would prepare the hellish dishes. They go on to say that episodes are non-linear, so you can enjoy them in any order, and that each episode features a guest character. Also, the cooking dance that Chef and Jr. perform would be a highlight of the show. Eventually, they would aim to make 26 3-minute long episodes, so unlike The Bloody Cart, it would actually be a full-blown season of episodes. The thing is though, to make an entire season of this show, it would cost like way more than the entire Kickstarter campaign. So their plan was to use this money to make a 1 minute long or less pilot film that they could use to like shop around for like sponsors and publishers. But the way that they describe what the 1 minute film is gonna be about is so funny to me. A key cut from the show, the culinary dance scene between Hell's Chef and Junior. This is because it is a suitable cut to spread awareness of the Gregory Horror Show on social networking sites such as TikTok and YouTube. It is also a great way to attract the attention of sponsors. They're basically making a Kickstarter for a viral TikTok dance. What the fuck are we doing, man? Like, what is this? What is all of this? Like, even the show itself just isn't it. Like, it sounds like a cute spin-off, but it's a spin-off. You do spin-offs when, like, your main thing is popping. Not when you're trying to, like, revive and reboot the entire show, man. It's not Hell's Chef who needs to cook. It's Naomi. Fucking Naomi, get back in the Hell's Kitchen and cook, man, because this shit is raw. It's undercooked, it's underdeveloped. Fucking bring me a good piece of Gregory Horror Show thing, goddammit. It's not that complicated. You got it from the get-go. Just make more of the first thing. Fuck, man. Anyways, not all hope for this show is lost, because in one of the comments of the Kickstarter, Naomi said that he thinks the problem was that he was trying to do like 2 things at once for a Kickstarter, and like, no shit. So he said he will focus on one thing at a time. So it's safe to assume that like after the whole game thing is done, they're gonna try again with Hell's Kitchen? Yeah, that's the name. Hell's Kitchen. Jesus fucking Christ, man. This is the last Gregory Horror Show thing, and also the least Gregory Horror Show thing. Like, I'm not saying that a Gregory Horror Show thing isn't the Gregory Horror Show unless it has like all the 5 staples I talked about like eons ago in the video. The volume 3 and 4 are very much Gregory Horror Show. I don't think they're the best, but they're undeniably Gregory Horror Show, you know, like they get the vibe of it. But this game and Lost Qualia just like break and twist Gregory Horror Show to fit their game. When it should be like the other way around. Make a game that makes sense. And wouldn't you know it, both games were made by the same developer, Unframe. More like, unfucking develop this game. This game is a roguelite, and you play as a zombie who can steal souls and take forms of his enemies. Like, the fuck? This is very Castlevania and Bloodstained inspired. I wish it was at least a Metroidvania so you could explore Gregory House and the surrounding area. But no, it's a stage-based roguelite. You go stage from stage, leveling up soul forms and getting randomized boosts until you get to a boss stage. The first boss being Neko Zombie. But if I'm being honest, the demo was so boring I didn't even get to Neko Zombie. But like, what the fuck? Not only is the concept super forced into Gregory Horror Show, it's also executed like shit. The stages are bland, repetitive, and ugly. The gameplay is the most basic shit ever. There's no punch to it or anything. Also, the art style is completely different. I do like how Catherine looks. I mean, it's not a bad art style or anything, it's just a bit more generic. But the thing that is faithful to Gregory Horror Show are the characters. Like, the things that they say and the way they act is very true to them. And I guess to Naomi that is what makes Gregory Horror Show Gregory Horror Show. Simply the cast of characters and nothing else. Do you know what else has a cast of characters? Every fucking thing ever in the history of making things has characters. You need to add more on top of that. I don't know, man, like, I think the reason this annoys me so much is because it's so obvious, dude. It's so easy to think of a fucking phenomenal game for Gregory Horror Show. FNAF? Ever fucking heard of it? Mascot horror? And like, it's perfect. It fits it so perfectly. And don't even give me the whole, oh, mascot horror is so lame, it's so over. Shitty mascot horror is lame and boring and like overdone, but this is a match made in heaven. And Gregory Horror Show predates mascot horror, so it's like perfect. Like, there's this game, At Dead of Night. It came out in 2020 and it blew up online. Everyone was playing it. There was like a million Let's Plays about it. Fucking Markiplier played it. Probably Jacksepticeye, probably PewDiePie, everyone was playing it. And it's about this chick getting lost and her car breaking down, and then she checks into a hotel, like a creepy hotel in the middle of nowhere, and the owner of the hotel is like super weird, and he ends up chasing her to kill her. And then she has to like run around and escape the hotel with the help of ghosts trapped in the hotel. Like, do that! It's fucking, are you kidding me? It's so easy. Not only is it easy, it's perfect. Like, that would be so much fun. Like, especially in first person perspective, and even with the cubes, it would be so good and it would pop off, dude. Like, fucking think, dude. Oh my god. Oh my god, man. Like, it's just so annoying because are you stupid? Like, dude, wake up, man. The answer is staring you in the face. It's slapping you fucking around. Just please fucking take this idea. Take it from me. Do it, pussy. Absolutely ridiculous. Dude, I got an alert from my phone telling me I'm stressed too much. This shit is fucking killing me. Please, do something. Well, I think that's pretty much every single Gregory Horror Show thing in existence. If I had to rank those that I experienced, I would place Volume 1 and 2 of the show first place, then Another World Manga second, then Volume 3 and 4, then Lost Qualia, and finally, dead last in the pits of hell, Soul of Roses. That is a third in Mouse's clothing. It is not the Gregory Horror Show, don't at me. I don't want it to seem like I'm some Gregory Horror Show purist. Like, I'm not saying that it's not at all a Gregory Horror Show if it doesn't have this, and that. I'm saying that Gregory Horror Show works best when it's about this ordinary person, just some guy stepping into this, like, just pure nightmare reality of just nonsense. You know, just like pure what the fuck. But yeah, I don't know, man. I'm done. I'm officially stepping off my soapbox and I'm leaving. Later.